Okay, welcome. In today's lecture, we'll look at how to use Visual Studio. Um, I think you must have installed Visual Studio. If you want to start it, it's just like starting any normal program. This is the Visual Studio icon on my status bar. I also have it. You can also search for it if you go to start and just type visual. The moment you start typing Visual Studio, it will come out um, in the suggestions. So I think I would suggest, if it's not um, pinned on your status bar like it is on mine here, if you look at my mouse, if it's not pinned there, it's better you search for it in your start bar. You search for Visual Studio, and then if you notice, I have two. There's Visual Studio 2019, and then there's Visual Studio Installer. So it's not the installer you're going to run. The installer is just to allow you install the program in your system. So the one you want is, after installation, what you'll have is Visual Studio. Depending on the version, I think we have the same version 2019. So to start it, that is, if it's not on your pinned to your status bar, you can just let me just remove this. I accidentally started it, so I want to remove it from my status bar. I right click and I unpin. So at the moment I don't have it on my status bar. I can go to start and go to Visual and type Visual Studio, and this is it. I can click on it and it runs the Visual Studio. So right now Visual Studio is running, and whenever you start an application, it shows up on your status bar. So here I have it on my status bar. The problem now is, if I should close it, it disappears. If you notice, it has disappeared from my status bar because I haven't pinned it there. So just to make things easier for you, whenever you want to start it, you can make sure you pin it on your status bar. So I'll go to Visual Studio, just like, I'm sure you know how to do all this, but just to reinstate, so it's easier for you whenever you want to start it. You don't have to go and search for it. So I would right click it on the status bar and then choose pin to taskbar. So that's it. So it's now pinned on my taskbar. So I'll just close it now. So you see it's still there on my taskbar. So I can now click on it to run. So this is how you start Visual Studio, just like any other application. So when you start Visual Studio, this is what comes up usually, except if you're running it for the first time. You might have to go through some processes for selecting the default options. I think I've already done that on your system. So when you start Visual Studio, I believe this is what should come up. The only difference is some of these solutions that are showing here, you might not see them because you haven't created any solution, you haven't opened any solution before. This is like recent solutions I've opened before. So you'll also have these options on your right hand side, which says clone or checkout code, open a project or solution, open a local folder, create a new project. So since you want to create a new solution, if you notice, there's this funny thing about Visual Studio, is that it it names two different structures. It calls a solution, and then it calls another thing a project. It's a bit confusing, especially for learners. The thing you should know is that a solution can have several projects inside it. So if you're going to create an application, for example, the source, or let's say the like file that keeps everything that you're going to create in that application is actually the solution. However, inside the solution, in order so that you can structure your work and kind of keep things in a structured way, you can keep some things inside one project. So that is, you can structure them in projects. You can have one project inside the solution, or you can have two projects. You can have as many projects as you want inside one solution. Now, that brings us on to, why doesn't it say create a new solution? Why does it only say create a new project? It's a weird thing with Visual Studio that you just have to put up with. So when the thing is that when you create a new project, that is when Visual Studio actually creates the solution, and then it places that new project that you create into the solution. So even though you can see open a project or solution, that is, if you have already created a solution, you can open an existing one. You do not have an option to create a new solution. You only have an option to create a new project. That is at the beginning. So just go ahead and select create a new project. I've clicked on create a new project, and it brings me up to this weird options. I have two panes. This is the left pane, everything here, which says recent project templates, is on the left here, and then on the right I have the main area where I'm going to make my selection for my project that I want to create. If you remember, I said we were going to use C#. If you click on this arrow where C# is showing, you might not see C# there. It might be all languages showing here for you, so it doesn't matter. You can change it. You can change it to C#. What this does is just that it kind of filters the options that you have. So at the moment, if I should choose all languages, the templates that are going to show in the pane here is going to be a lot. That is every single template that has, whether it's C# or C++. If you can see in this one, it's C++, or other programming languages. You can see this one is Visual Basic. So the use of this is just when you want to select your the template you want to select. If it's a C# program you want to create, you can just select C# and it will limit only templates that support C# programming will show up here. So this will cut down the number of items that will show. So I think it might be a good idea to select C# always, since we're going to be using C#. Then for platforms, you can leave it on all platforms, doesn't matter. The same thing with project types, just leave it on all project types. Anyway, the only template, since we're going to be doing the basics, the only template we're interested in is the console application, which is the first one that you see, console app. And make sure it shows C# under it. So just highlight that. If you click on it, it will be highlighted in blue, and then you click next. That's next here. All this we're doing is we want to create a new project and a new solution. So you click on next, and then it brings you again to here. This option is for you to select the name of your project. If you look at it up here, it's saying project name. So it wants you to give it to give the project a name. Now look at this funny thing. If I decide to change the name of the project, notice what happens. The solution name also changes. So the thing about Visual Studio is that you cannot name your solution different from your first project. You just can't do it. the first project you create is going to be the same name with the solution. Remember, I said the solution is like the container where you're going to put the project into. So let's just call this project my first project. So by naming it my first project, you can see it also calls the name of my solution my first project, which I find it very weird about Visual Studio. So maybe we should lose the project because this is a solution. It shouldn't be calling it project. So let's just call it my first app. Let's call it my first app. So the name of the project, remember, the name of the project is my first app. At the same time, the name of the solution is also my first app. So the next thing is the location where you want to save the solution. Always select okay, you didn't see what I did there. I clicked on this three dots, which means browse, for me to change the location where I want to save the project. So by clicking on it, this browsing window pops up that allows me to select the directory or the folder where I'm going to save this project. I would suggest you probably create on your desktop maybe a folder where you can be saving all your work. So I'll just right click on my desktop here and say create. Where's create? I would like to create a folder, new, and I choose folder and I'll call it my apps. So I'll just click I've created a folder called my apps. What I want to do is any Visual Studio solution I create is going to live inside this folder. So I'll just browse to my desktop. I'll just click on desktop and there we have it. My apps folder is there. I'll double click on my apps and then I click select folder. Now it means that my first app is going to be saved, that is the solution is going to be saved inside that folder. So I click on create and now Visual Studio is going to create the solution for me. So that is the steps you follow if you want to create a solution in Visual Studio. If you notice, this on the right hand side is a solution explorer. Maybe we should end this video here so that it doesn't get too long. In the next video I'll show you all about the Visual Studio pane. So I'll just close that. If you look at inside the folder, this is my first my apps folder, you will see another folder called my first app. Now inside that folder, this file is the solution file and then you have other folders inside there. Anyway, I'm going to terminate this video here. So this is the end of the first tutorial.